Utare Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we are reading from Canto 1, the creation, chapter 19, the appearance of Śukadeva Gosvāmī, text number 18. Have the screen, please. Thank you. So Canto 1, chapter 19, text 18. Evam cha tasmin naradeva deve prayopavishte divi deva sanghe prashasya bhumo vyakiran prashuner mura muhur dhundu bhayascha nedhu evam cha tasmin naradeva deve prayo upavishte divi deva sangha prashasya bhumo Vyakiran prashuner muda muhur dubhayascha nedhu. Word to word. Evam, thus, cha, and, tasmin, in that, Nara Deva Deve, upon the kings, Praya Upavishte, being engaged in fasting to death, Divi, in the sky, Deva, demigods, Sange, all of them, Prashasya, having praised the action, Bhumo, on the earth, Vyakiran, scattered, Prashune, with flowers, Muda, in pleasure, Muhu, continually, Dundubhayaha, celestial drums, Cha, also, Nedhu, beaten. Translation and purport by His Loving Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation. Thus the king, Maharaj Parikshit, sat to fast until death. All the demigods of the higher planets praised the king's action and in pleasure continually scattered flowers over the earth and beat celestial drums. Would anyone like to read the purport, please? Okay,
I can read Mataji.
Thank you.
Purport. Even at the time of Maharaj Parikshit, there was interplanetary communications, and the news of Maharaj Parikshit's fasting unto death to attain salvation reached the higher planets in the sky, where the intelligent demigod live. The demigods are more luxurious than human beings, but all of them are obedient to the orders of Supreme Lord. There is no one in the heavenly planets who is an atheist or non-believer. Thus, any devotee of the Lord on the surface of the earth is always praised by them. And in the case of Maharaj Parikshit, they were greatly delighted and thus gave token of honor by scattering flowers over the earth by beating celestial drums. Demigods take pleasure in seeing someone go back to Godhead. He is always pleased with the devotee of the Lord, so much so that by the Adidevic powers he may help the devotees in all respect. And by their actions, the Lord is pleased with them. There is an invisible chain of complete cooperation between the Lord, the demigods, and the devotee of the Lord on the earth. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you.
So much. Jnanatirmirandhasya Gyananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yatkripatab aham vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Paramananda Madhavam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. So Hare Krishna, dear devotees. When I first read this purport, the very first point that struck me was that how demigods are so encouraging, and they are so pleased with Maharaj Parikshit as to, and they're not only pleased, but they're also demonstrating their pleasure by scattering flowers and beating celestial drums. And this is something that we can learn in our day-to-day dealings with devotees, in our day-to-day dealings with everyone in general, that when someone does some service or that is better than us, or they just do some service, we are appreciative of them, and we also show that in our actions, in our words, which is so significant. There's so much need of encouragement, positivity in if we see, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that this world is dukhalaya shashvatam, that it is full of miseries and it's temporary. And the only hope in this material world is the Vaishnavas. In a world full of difficulties, Vaishnavas are giving hope to people in general. And such behavior is demonstrated here by the demigods. We study in Ishopnishad that Om Purnamadam, Purnamidam, Purnamadachade, Purnasya Purnamevaya, Purnameva Vashishyate, that absolute truth is the source of everything that exists. It is perfect, it is complete, and everything that emanates from the absolute truth is also perfect and complete. So the material world, the spiritual world, everything that's coming from Krishna, Krishna says, Sarvalokam Maheshwaram in Bhagavad Gita, that the whole world is his property. And when we envision the whole world with that point in mind, that everything is Krishna's property, then naturally we will be freed from any anarthas, any anger, any lust, or any envy that we experience, because then we understand that Krishna is the proprietor. I am not the proprietor. I'm just the caretaker. And if we see someone else doing well in their devotional service, or someone else doing very well, then we celebrate their good fortune. We celebrate their efforts, and we understand that we all are children of Krishna. So then we are not envious. See, when we become, or we develop this this tendency of exploiting only when we have this diseased heart, where our heart is very selfish, very egoistic, whereas compassion is a symptom of a person who has actually found inner fulfillment within our hearts. So we also need to strive to build our relationships with all the living entities, with Mother Earth, on the principle that everything is coming from Krishna. And that's what demigods are demonstrating. They are being so supportive of Maharaj Parikshit. As we unpack this verse, the very first line that Prabhupada writes in this verse is that Maharaj Parikshit's fasting unto death to attain salvation reached the higher planets in the sky where the intelligent demigods live. And that struck me, that Prabhupada is pointing out that these demigods are intelligent. They are obedient, and they are not atheistic. So they believe in Krishna's authority. And so to be able to be appreciative of best things in life, to be able to be appreciative of devotional service in life, one has to be intelligent. And how do we develop our intelligence? We see how demigods they're constantly engaged in managing external affairs of the material worlds and indirectly serving Krishna. And that's how they're developing intelligence. But what about us? we can develop our intelligence by reading scriptures. When we have this culture of reading and hearing, our intelligence develops. And when we read Srila Prabhupada books, hear his lectures, we get this jnana chakshu. Even if that is very not very advanced, however, we still see, we are able to analyze, we are able to discriminate. And that's why it's very important to read Srila Prabhupada books. The very first purpose of ISKCON is to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large, to educate all people in the techniques of spiritual life, so that we can check the imbalance of values in life. And that's how, Prabhupada says that that's how we'll achieve real unity and peace in the world. So, in the purport to this, or, explanation to this very first purpose of ISKCON, which is to propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large, I was reading that how the very aim is to give people this genuine spiritual knowledge that we are all spirit souls, and that there is a spiritual world which is beyond this material world. And when we invite people like that, or we tell people about this basic knowledge, then we enable them to become more peaceful, become more self-satisfied from within, because then they are not hankering. So unless we read Srila Prabhupada books, the very first purpose of ISKCON is we propagate spiritual knowledge. So unless we are reading Srila Prabhupada books, how else can we propagate? How else can we, tell others about this? And it's not the responsibility, as a practicing devotee, sometimes we think that it is just the responsibility of the leaders, or it's just the responsibility of the people who are giving classes, or just at the top, people who are engaged in management, or people who are the leaders of the community or the temple. It's their responsibility to read Srila Prabhupada books. It's actually that's not true, because it's the responsibility of each one of us as parents, as practicing sadhaka. This is the minimum that Prabhupada is expecting us that we read his books. And that's the best way to glorify Prabhupada. If we start reading his books, thoroughly studying them, by lending our ear to his lectures, our ear to his books, we start reading them, and we bring about that change in our lives as well. Then we are glorifying Srila Prabhupada. Then we are, and if also when we've filled ourselves with Krishna Katha, with Prabhupada books, so much so that we are ready to share, and it comes out naturally to us. In that way, we can glorify Srila Prabhupada. That's the best way we glorify Srila Prabhupada. That's why, Vani is considered more powerful than Vapu. I was listening to a lecture, and, Amarendra Prabhu was saying that how there are ways to study Bhagavatam. And he gave 5 ways. And I'm sure almost all of us do something or the other. But it's the 5 ways that he suggested. Was the very first is hearing classes, taking notes, hearing classes. When we hear classes on verses of Bhagavatam, it gives us broader understanding. I remember Keshav Maharaj, said that he got Bhagavad Gita at the age of 15, and he was reading on his own, Prabhupada Bhagavad Gita. He was reading on his own for almost 2 years, and then once he happened to attend a class on Bhagavad Gita in Manor, and he said that whatever he has studied, whatever he has read in the last 2 years, whatever he gained in that one class, in the 30-minute class of Bhagavad Gita, was way more than what he had studied in the last 2 years on his own. And that's why it's so important to hear. And then the second point he mentions is, we also, while we are hearing, the first point is when we hear classes. The second is when we also take some time out to study on our own. Sometimes as devotees, we think that, this is, I heard a class today, that's good. So it's not that important to study on my own. But the very first instruction that my Guru Maharaj gave us, when we took his shelter was read Bhagavatam every day. That was his instruction, that even if you just, keep your, just keep this Bhagavatam on the bedside table and just read it every day. Even if you're reading one page, one line, one verse, just read it every day. Just be consistent. And it's so important that we take out time to study on our own as well. That's very important. Because when we do both of these things together, then it deepens our absorption, it deepens our understanding. And the third point that Narendra Prabhu gives is memorize verses. His Grace Viraj Krishna Prabhu emphasizes so much on this point. Sometimes we find it's very daunting to memorize verses. Sanskrit is not something that I studied as when I was in school. But the best way to memorize verses is by singing the verses. I also sometimes make a lot of mistakes, but when we try to sing, it's easier to remember, and then our consciousness is also absorbed in. See, it is said that if we are not hearing Krishna Katha, then what are we hearing? We are hearing mundane talks. So that's why it's so important that we just fill our consciousness. We keep filling our consciousness with this, with Bhagavatam, with Krishna Katha. Then the fourth point he says is, when we, based on our reading, based on our hearing, we discuss with others what we have read. And that is, I find that is so important, because when we hear or when we discuss it with others, then what happens is that it actually, we are able to memorize it. We are able to remember those points. Because then when we discuss it, it just, and again, Srinvatam Swakatha Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtan, that, anyways, this is the most auspicious activity, that when we are hearing, when we are discussing, that's the most auspicious. And the side effect is that it is cleaning our heart as well. And we'll feel that, we'll experience that joy when we discuss it with others. Yesterday, Radha Krishna Prabhu, gave a very practical class on how, we have heard this many times, that how to inculcate or how to have this family routine, spiritual family routine with our children, with our spouse. And so this point comes in that we are discussing with others what we have read, even if it is one word, one line, one chapter that we read in Krishna book, just discussing it with your children. And that's like this, this forms a routine, and this forms like this, there's this culture of a practice which is so core to our movement. When we discuss it, then we remember. And if we see, actually, I can tell from my own experience that when my children were little, they were able to, whatever I used to ask them, they were able to do it very instantly. They never used to question me, because their age is that, they would just depend on their parents. Whatever we ask them to do, they will do it happily. But as we, and as they grow, as they are influenced by their peers, their friends at school, in general with technology, then even though they hear everything, what we say them as parents, but they may not instantly do it. And that's why this culture of, this family routine is so important. Even if doing an arti or doing a kirtan together, hearing a kirtan together, hearing a class together, and then, taking out some points that, oh, I like this point in this, or probably just 10 minutes, play a class of Prabhupada for 10 minutes, and then, this way they are connected to this eternal reality of life. That's very important, to discuss with others what we read. And the fifth point is we question, we ask questions based on what we have read, based on what we have heard in the class. We ask questions from our seniors, that this is what I've heard, and I have a question in this. And that's how our intelligence will develop, by this culture of regular hearing and discussing with devotees. There's a very strong verse in Bhagavatam and second canto where the ear holes the verse goes like this. Bile baturu kramavikramanye na shinvata karnapute narasya jivashati duruke vasuta nako pagayati urugaya gatha. That one who has not listened to the messages about Urukrama means Krishna, and about the marvelous acts of personality of Godhead, and who has not sung or chanted loudly the songs about Krishna, is to be considered to possess ear holes like the holes of snakes and a tongue like the tongue of a frog. Just such a strong, comparison, that when we are not hearing, and why is it compared when we are not hearing? Why are ear holes compared to ear holes of snakes when, if they are not listening to the messages of Krishna? Because when we are not hearing Krishna Katha, as I said before, then what are we hearing? We are hearing some mundane talks. And Krishna is the master of the senses. Krishna is Rishikesh. So unless we engaged our senses in Krishna's service, they are not doing their job. They are not, like how, the constitutional position of a jiva is to serve. The constitutional position of ears is to hear Krishna Katha. Unless we are doing that, we are, Bhagavatam says that they are like holes of snakes. And then it says that, and a tongue which is not used for the glorification of the Lord is considered as a frog. So how the frog, loudly croaks, and because of that, what happens is he invites snakes to eat him. So the human tongue is specially meant for glorifying Krishna, for glorifying, singing Krishna's glories, name, form, pastimes. And in this particular verse, Prabhupada compares this asati, it's said that the tongue is asati, means useless. That means it is useless if it's not engaged in Krishna service. And asati also means a woman who has become a prostitute. So a prostitute has no good womanly qualities. So similarly, the tongue who has of a human being, which is not used for chanting Krishna's name, it is considered a prostitute when engaged in chanting some mundane nonsense. So hearing and chanting, they are the foundation of Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada is saying here that these demigods are very intelligent. So with their intelligence, we see how demigods are constantly serving Krishna by managing affairs of the material world. And that's how they're developing intelligence. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti. That when one serves me with loving devotional service, then what I give them dadami buddhi, that I give them buddhi, intelligence by which they can come to me. Upayanti yena mam upayanti, that they come back to me. And I remember as a child when my father always used to teach us that when you go to the temple, never ask for anything material, or never ask for things from the Lord. Each time you go to the temple, you should ask for subuddhi, that Krishna give me intelligence, right intelligence, so that I can make right decisions. So it's how, and Krishna says that that's how he gives them intelligence. When we are engaged in Krishna service, he is giving us the intelligence by which we understand that devotional service is the highest. And demigod is taking pleasure. It is the line here says that a demigod takes pleasure in seeing someone go back to Godhead. So with their intelligence, they understand that this is the essence of life. And once we understand that bhakti is uttama, that's the topmost, then we try to act in a way which is always pleasing to Krishna in all circumstances. And then Prabhupada gives this example here. He's always pleased with Prabhupada mentions here that about demigods, that he's always pleased with the devotee of the Lord, so much so that by his Adi-Devic powers, he may help the devotees in all respects. And we practically see sometimes that when we organize festivals which are outdoor, which is an outdoor event, and the forecast says that it's going to rain, so many times it has happened that the weather surprises us, that it doesn't rain, or even if it rains after the event, which is so amazing. That means demigods are using their Adidevic powers to actually, they are pleased with this, this attitude of devotees, that they help them in all respects. Then Prabhupada mentions that there is an invisible chain of complete cooperation between the Lord, the demigods, and the devotee of the Lord on earth. And this reminds me of this pastime of Jad Bharat. So Jad Bharat has 3 lives. So Maharaj Bharat, by his name, the whole world was known as Bharatvarsha. And he renounced everything, and he became a sage Bharat. And then when he was in the forest, he got attached to, he was so absorbed in Krishna, but still he got distracted, and he got attached to a deer. And then because he was thinking about deer at the time of death, he became a deer in the next life. However, Krishna, it was so kind to him. Prabhupada mentions in 5th canto, repeatedly he mentions in those verses, that how Krishna is so kind to him that he remembers his last life. He remembers everything, even in the deer body, he's remembering everything, what happened in the last life, and what mistakes did he do. And then because he remembered in the body of a deer that this is what happened, that's how he messed up. Then he leaves his family of deer, and he goes to he starts residing in an ashram, near an ashram, where he leaves his body, and then he gets this birth as Jad Bharat in a family of brahmanas. And so Jad Bharat was, in that life, Jad Bharat remembered everything, and then he thought, this time I'm not going to mess up this time. And he was so absorbed, though he was very intelligent, yet he acted like a dumb and a deaf person, and so that that he doesn't understand anything. And then his family, who was his step brothers, and they used to mistreat him, and they used to give him stale food. So one time, when he was at the farm, guarding their farms, his stepbrother's farm, what happened was that there were some decoys. There were some worshippers of goddess Kali, who were looking for a person who they can sacrifice to Mother Kali. And then they thought, oh, this is a perfect person. So they catch hold of Jad Bharat, and they take them to the temple nearby, the Kali temple, and then they dress him nicely, they feed him nicely, and the head of the worshippers, the head pujari there, he took a sword, and the moment he took the sword and was about to kill or offer his head, Jad Bharat's head, at the feet of goddess Kali, goddess Kali emerged from the altar and took that sword and killed all of the worshippers who were the worshippers of Kali. So that means there is an invisible. When Prabhupada says that there's a chain of complete cooperation between the Lord and the demigods and the devotees of the Lord, this shows that how Jad Bharat, goddess Kali helped Jad Bharat, so that he can continue on his service. And then the second line of the verse says, Praya upavishte. Upavas means the Lord. Upa means closer, and vas means to reside. So therefore, upvas means when we are saying closer to the Lord as much as possible. So when we upvas, it means that Maharaj Parikshit was in that consciousness that he was fasting until death, staying closer to the God. He had that consciousness that he wants to be absorbed in the thoughts of Lord Krishna. Sometimes for us, when we have to be so conscious that when we are fasting, we need to ensure that how Chaitanya Charan Prabhu says, our body is fasting, but false ego is feasting. So we have to be so careful that any service that we are performing, we are doing that for the pleasure of Krishna. If I'm dressing the deities, if I'm doing the arati of the deities, it's not that I'm doing glorifying my own ego. No, should not be that. We should have that consciousness that I am doing this service for the pleasure of Krishna. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport that how demigods are celebrating. Now, in material world, if someone is dying, and if we ask them to, get a band or, get some flowers and do some decoration, they would just think us to be mad. Hey, what are you saying? The person is about to die. What's the occasion? Why should we celebrate? But here that we see that demigods are celebrating that, and the lesson that we get from here is that when a person acts in a way which is in line with the basic principle of self-realization. Self-realization means that I am the soul and my relationship with Krishna is eternal. In that, when and I act according to that. So then when such a person who's been acting according to the basic principle of self-realization, then such a person is to be celebrated. And that's how Maharaj Parikshit is being celebrated by demigods. I had so many points to cover. I'm sorry I've gone over 2 minutes, but I'll stop here and see if anyone has any questions, any comments, any realizations, please.
Thank you, Mataji. Very nice class. No question.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Grantraj Srīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai.
Hey.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Have a good day. Thank you.
Mataji ki jai.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.